You gonna say hi? Are you gonna say hi? Okay. He's not gonna say hi today. But I'm gonna say hi. Hi everyone. Welcome back to a new video and welcome to the first episode of a new series that I'm starting, which is called my After Recovery series, in which I take those of you that have recovered or that are in the last little bit of their recovery and kind of guide you guys. I'm sorry for a tourist right there, and guide you guys through the next step of your journey, which is navigating life, navigating building your life back up, navigating mental health in general, or inner peace, or your spiritual journey, or whatever it is that you'd like to embark upon. And so I kind of filled in a little, or like I posted a little poll on my Instagram last week asking you what your topics would be that you'd like me to talk about. And a lot of things, really great things came up. I'm really looking forward to actually diving into these topics. Some of you asked about like finding your true self again, building up resilience again, dealing with just general mental health stuff, actually setting positive goals for yourself. There was a lot of great topics that came up that I'm really excited to dive into. But there was one in particular that came up the most, which did not really surprise me, but I kind of wanted to start with this topic specifically because I understand why it's the topic that came up the most, and I also think it's necessary to address this first before you go into the next chapter of your life and enjoy your after recovery. And the topic being how to deal with the fear of having setbacks, the fear of kind of like what they call backdoor anxiety, the fear that anxiety is just looming around the corner and it's just gonna come back at any time and I guess like reappear, which I didn't necessarily struggle with myself, but a lot of my clients do. So I definitely understand what it is about. And I wanted to dedicate some time today to talk you through the 5 best tips that I have for you if this is something that you feel currently is holding yourself back, that you're just recovered or you're getting it out of your DPDR, or you're in that 90% recovery and you feel this kind of like uncomfortable feeling with the quiet that is present. Because with anything that you're scared of, as much as the fear itself can be extremely, or the thing that you're afraid of itself can feel extremely terrifying, sometimes the moment when that thing is not present is even more terrifying because you don't know when it's going to come. You have no idea what to expect. And a good example of this actually is my first ever relationship, or like my first serious relationship, I had a ton of fear of abandonment. I was terrified that I was going to lose that person because I was extremely attached. And so every day this was something that was on my mind. And even though I was in the relationship and everything was fine at the time, every single day I felt this horrible feeling in my stomach because I was terrified of losing them. And you could kind of compare this to your after recovery phase where you're fine, you're good, there's no terrifying DPDR, or there's no like extremely uncomfortable feelings, but you just have this feeling in your gut, this feeling of fear of, oh, what if it comes back? Similar to me having this fear of, oh, what if they break up with me, even when at the time things were fine. And the interesting thing about that anecdote is that the moment they actually broke up with me, as much heartbreak as there was such relief for me because I didn't have to prepare for it anymore. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is the part of you that wants to protect you from something happening in the future that you don't have control over. And that was what it was for me. I was so dependent on that person that I felt like if they broke up, I'd be completely lost. And that's why I was so terrified of them breaking up. But the moment they actually broke up, it was like, okay, now I can deal with this. Now there's something here, something present that I can get through, that I can deal with. And what happened was after that relationship, because I got through it after some point, well, it took some time, of course, but I never felt afraid in the next relationship ever again to lose the partner. because I knew that I had gotten through it and I felt that and I experienced that. So there's an aspect of confidence that is really important. The confidence of, I know that if it happens, I'll be strong enough to deal with it. And that's also where my tips will be a little bit focused on. But I hope that this metaphor to start with already gives you a little bit of a feeling of, okay, maybe I do resonate with that. And yeah, I guess that's kind of the best example I could find for comparing it to this backdoor anxiety. So what are my 5 tips for you if you struggle with backdoor anxiety, or if you struggle with the fear of having a setback? My very first tip for you is the most easy one, which is giving it time. Just give it time. Because kind of like if you are in a friendship with someone that harms your trust, or that does something behind your back, and you want to repair that relationship, it's going to take time to rebuild that trust. And that's kind of what is happening right now. You're recovered, you're doing better, but it's maybe still fresh, or it hasn't been that long, and you still need to regain trust in yourself that you can actually do this and that the DPDR actually will stay away. So my first tip for you is really just give it time, give your brain time to prove to you that it is recovered, to prove to you that it is capable of handling stress, that it is capable of sitting with difficult emotions. Continue to meditate, continue to show yourself, look, this is fine, I'm okay, I can deal with difficult emotions, there's no more reason for me to dissociate, to detach, but just give it time. That's the very first tip I would give you. Don't rush through it, don't find the pressure to every day feel like completely, woohoo, I'm free. No, give it time, it will come. The second tip that I have for you is to try to reframe the way that you perceive your DPDR journey altogether. Instead of seeing it as something that happened to you, like a horrible experience, try to see it as something that actually helped you make an inner change that was necessary, and your body therefore having shown you that there was something going on that you needed to address, something that you really needed to change through. I think a lot of people see their DPDR journey and their anxiety journey as this horrible disease that overcame them, that they have to work through. But something I very much believe in, whether that's physical health or mental health, is this stuff doesn't just happen for a reason. There is always a cause. There was always something going on underneath the surface in your subconscious that needed your attention, that you needed to work through, a pattern that you needed to change, an emotion you needed to deal with, a source of strength or inner confidence that you needed to create. And the DPDR is literally the last resort of your nervous system saying, we are too terrified to be in this life, so we're just going to dissociate or detach. And that has a reason for it. So try maybe journaling a little bit, sitting down and actually reframing the way you look at this journey. And instead of seeing it as this horrible thing that happened, try to list down the things that you learned from it. Try to write down the ways it helped you become a better person. Try to write down all the tools and all the coping mechanisms and the healthy emotional regulation tools that you've learned along the way, maybe the people that you've met, maybe the opportunities that you've gotten, maybe just the resilience that you got through it, and trying to really reframe, looking at it from the perspective of, oh, this is this terrible thing that happened to me, to how did this actually happen for me, and how can this continue to help me become a better person? So reframing the way you look at it. That's my second tip for you. The third tip is very important, is to remember, this might sound complicated when I first say it, but try to stick with it. Remember what the DPDR felt like in the last part of your recovery, not in the very first time. The very first time you got your DPDR attack was traumatic for probably every single one of you. Either if it was your panic attack, either if it was the DPDR itself. But we all have that one memory of the DPDR being so terrifying, so bad, that we were just like either not knowing how to deal with it, either feeling completely in complete despair. And when you think of the DPDR coming back, that's what you think about. You don't think about the times towards the end where it was like, kind of like, oh, it's there, but I mean, I can deal with it. You don't think about the times where it's there that you actually felt kind of okay with it, or the times it was there where it was sort of kind of small. You think about that initial dreadful attack. The thing that made that so dreadful, the thing that made that so incredibly awful, was a combination of, first of all, the surprise element of it, that you didn't know what it was, that you had no idea where it came from, that you didn't know what it was. So kind of not knowing what was going on, feeling like something was incredibly wrong with you that you now know isn't, because this is a very normal nervous system response to coping with a perceived set of dangers or threats. And third of all, not knowing when it was going to end, not knowing if you were ever going to get out of it. It's the combination of those three things that made that initial experience so completely traumatic. It's the surprise, the shock of, oh my God, what's happening? Not knowing what it is, feeling completely terrified that something really wrong is happening. And thirdly, not knowing when you're going to get out of it. But the truth is that the fear of it coming back, this backdoor anxiety, still perceives the DPDR and still perceives the anxiety the way that you perceived it the first time. And that can happen. Sometimes we know rationally in the moment that something is safe, but some part of us still lives in the past. The part that's trying to protect us lives in a memory of the past that we were completely traumatized by. So what I advise you to do is try to become present with how you actually look at DPDR today and now, with everything you've learned with everything I've told you about it in my videos, with all the recovery progress that you've made, to understand that when you are afraid of having that setback, you are afraid of having that very first traumatic experience more than you are afraid of having the lingering little bits of it towards the end, when you already felt more in control. Because the truth of the matter is that probably it's not very possible to actually recover if you are still terrified of it. Part of your DPDR recovery comes from actually feeling more safe with it in the present, that when it's there, that you can go, okay, it's here, it is what it is, I can deal with it, it's gonna pass again. And in that moment, it doesn't feel as traumatizing, but it did the very first time. So bring yourself to the present. Know that it's your brain living in the memory of the past, and that past memory can never happen again, because these three elements of shock, unknown, and not knowing if it can pass again, are never going to be present, because you know now that what it is, and that it will pass, and that it is not threatening to you. So bring it to the present. The fourth tip is also very important. The whole thing about backdoor anxiety and this feeling like something's looming behind your back is that you're also running away from it, right? I've talked about this many times before. My fourth tip for you is just face it. If it comes back, it comes back. It's not ideal, it's not pleasant, it's uncomfortable, but you'll be okay. You're gonna be just fine, just like you were right now, just like you were maybe after your first setback. You will be okay. It's going to be uncomfortable. It might not be ideal, but you'll get through it again. You'll recover from it again, and it's not going to be the end of the world. I promise you that. Like, I had my setbacks. They weren't pleasant. They weren't great, but here I am right now. I got through them and they were fine. If you're having these fears of what if it comes back, just face it. If it comes back, it comes back, and you'll deal with it and you'll be just fine. I promise you. The last thing is to remember that it does not happen for a reason. DPDR is not some bacteria that crawls into your brain that takes over, that is like something you have no control over with malintentions towards you. To go back to the basics, again, like I've said before in this video and before in other videos, DPDR is your nervous system reacting to something feeling not right, not safe, or wrong. And that all happens in your subconscious. And while you don't have control directly in the moment over your subconscious, you can't just snap out of it. through inner work, through meditation, through subconscious reprogramming, you can get through it. You can change the way that your subconscious brain feels in life. You have full control over that. There's more and more research about the impact of your mind, of your thinking, of your focus, of meditation on the way your brain works. So it's not something you're not in control over. If it comes back, sure, it sucks, but understand that there's nothing that you're not in charge of. There's nothing you're not in control over, and you can be just fine again. And if you want to get some resources on that, I would advise you to watch Joe Dispenza's videos. Joe Dispenza is a neuroscientist that studies the relationship between focused thinking, meditation on mental and physical illness, and how you can actually change your brain and change your body with your thoughts with meditation. So that's something I'd advise you to look into if you want to get some more confidence on that. And yeah, I guess this is all that I have for you guys today. I hope that these tips help you. I want to also congratulate you, because if you're watching this video, that means that you are either recovered, which is great, which don't forget to pat yourself on the back for that. Either you're near the end of your recovery, or maybe you're still in it, but you're really working on yourself, and that's amazing too. And I believe in you, and I believe in every single one of you that are watching. So yeah, I want to give you all a big hug. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you guys next week on Friday.